Spider-Man, Spider-Man. There's been a lot of Phil Spider-Man. Since the year 2002, we've been blessed with many Phil Spider-Man, and I wanted to make a tier list ranking each one, as well as different characters from each. It's important to note that these are my personal opinions, and if yours differ from mine, that's okay. Let's have a discussion about it in the comment section down below. Here's what each tier means. Civilian/Citizen is the bottom tier, which means I can't find many, if any, redeeming qualities. The reason the names are different between the lists is because I forgot. The Trainee tier has something about them that I like. The Sidekick tier is good. I generally like them. The Super tier has a lot of great qualities about them, and the Hero tier is my favorite tier in each category. So let's start off with ranking each Spider-Man. Spoiler warning. I don't think there has been any truly bad Spider-Man performance, so nobody is in the bottom tier. Andrew Garfield is in the Trainee tier because while I thought he was a good and very quippy Spider-Man, I felt as though his Peter Parker left a lot to be desired. Also, he made a promise to Gwen Stacy's dead dad and then went back on it like a week later. The Crisis of Confidence Peter from Into the Spider-Verse is in the Sidekick tier because he wasn't the main character of the film. I did, however, love his story and the character arc. Into the Spider-Verse was my introduction to the character of Miles Morales, and I loved him. Originally, I didn't think of anyone but Peter Parker when I thought of Spider-Man, but this character definitely changed that. I also like that he's culturally very different from Peter. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is the ultimate nerd-turned-hero. You buy that he's a sweet guy who genuinely wants to help people. His Spider-Man was good, but not great. Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man we've ever had, in my opinion. He's funny, endearing, and believable in every way Peter Parker/Spider-Man should be. It's a plus that he actually looks like a teenager, unlike the 30-year-olds who played Peter before him. Next is the Spider-Man love interests. Gwen Stacy from Spider-Man 3 is the worst. She had very little character and was a waste of a major character in the Spider-Man lexicon. Mary Jane from that universe was pretty good, but something about her didn't click for me. She didn't scream Mary Jane when I saw her on screen. Liz Allen from Homecoming was an okay love interest in terms of her character. However, her social status and her connection to the film's antagonist made for a really interesting dynamic between her and Peter. Spider-Gwen was fantastic. Having Miles' probable future love interest be a fellow Soup is awesome. I also like that there's a wrinkle of her being from another dimension. Plus, she has a really cool haircut. MJ from the Marvel Spider-Man universe is awesome. She's such a different take on the classic MJ character and has a really refreshing dynamic with Peter. I also like that she knows that he's Spider-Man. Gwen from The Amazing Spider-Man had the best on-screen chemistry with Spider-Man we've seen so far. Sure, she made some really dumb decisions and tried to get involved too much, but I love that she was an active character in that universe. Next is the tier list for Spider-Man movie villains. All the villains from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 were terrible. Electro was straight out of a Joel Schumacher Batman film, Rhino was barely utilized and a goof, and the hairy Green Goblin turn was so rushed that I had a hard time buying into any of it. And Venom from Spider-Man 3 was just so poorly done. I don't blame Topher Grace for this though, because Sony forced Sam Raimi to include Venom in the story, and Sam Raimi admitted that he didn't really know how to use the character. The Spider-Verse side villains, along from Shocker from Homecoming, just didn't get enough screen time for me to get attached to any of them. It was cool to see them on screen though. Hobgoblin was a good and natural choice to be a villain, but I think Harry should have been the one to become Venom rather than Eddie Brock. I know that's not the norm, but it would have been a really natural progression of the story that Spider-Man universe created. Sandman being the one who killed Uncle Ben was a cool story development in my opinion, and I love that Peter forgave him at the end of the film. Wilson Fisk is always great no matter what medium he's in. I like Dr. Connors in The Amazing Spider-Man, but his plan was too dumb for him to get any higher on this list. Green Goblin is an incredible character. Being the father of his enemy's best friend is a great wrinkle, and I really liked him not turning into a physical goblin. Hot take, I know. Mysterio is a rare example of a successful villain. Him exposing Peter's identity was awesome. And he was acted by Jake Gyllenhaal, and I am a confirmed Gyllenhaalic. The Prowler being Miles' uncle was a great twist. I didn't see it coming because I'm not very knowledgeable on that Spider-Man's universe. And when he died, he served as great character motivation for Miles. Doc Ock is my favorite Spider-Man movie villain. I love his motivation and his descent into madness with the arms having a mind of their own. The scene where they attack the surgeons was incredible and straight out of a horror movie. And Vulture is one of those villains who also starts out as a good man with good intentions, but resorts to terrible deeds to get the job done. He's a family man whose daughter is dating his enemy. Talk about a conflict of interest. Finally is the ranking of each Spider-Man movie. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the only movie whose bad significantly outweigh the good for me. Upon first watch, I rated it a 5 out of 10, and it's only gotten worse since then. Spider-Man 3 isn't a good movie, but it also isn't terrible. I do like the ideas involved in Spider-Man 3, and if Venom was cut from the film, I think it would have been much better. The Amazing Spider-Man 1 is fine. There's some fun to be had, even with the horrible lizard plan, and the Peter Gwen stuff is pretty great. Spider-Man 1 is the first superhero movie I ever saw in theaters, and it will always hold a special place in my heart. Spider-Man Homecoming is just a well-made high school superhero film. The twists with the villain and the great stuff with the Spidey suit make this one of the most fun superhero movies I've seen. Spider-Man Far From Home is my second favorite live-action Spider-Man film. Its great villain, combined with really great character work in regards to Peter in a post-Tony Stark world, was incredible. That, combined with the shocking ending, really sets this one above most attempts at a Spidey flick. Into the Spider-Verse achieved something I never thought could be done. It almost became my favorite Spider-Man movie. Its attention to details with the characters, interesting animation, and awesome themes make this a must-watch Spider-Man film. Last but not least is Spider-Man 2. It's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and the train sequence is my favorite sequence in any superhero movie I've ever seen. A good crisis of confidence story, good villain, and an incredible fight on a choo-choo train makes this my absolute favorite Spider-Man movie ever made. Thank you very much for watching. If you could do me a favor, leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, and share it to your social media feeds. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more Geeks Weekly content. If any of your tier lists for these categories differ from mine, let me know in the comment section down below. In the links in the description, you'll find my social medias as well as a link to my podcast, Gorilla and the Geek. I've been Kyle from Geeks Weekly, and I'll see you again next time.